Welcome back to The Lead. I'm Jake Tapper. Now it's time for our world lead. Remember when Al-Qaeda was supposedly on the path to defeat? President Obama probably does. He mentioned it a few times in the 2012 campaign.
Al-Qaeda's on the path to defeat. Al-Qaeda's on the path to defeat. Path to defeat. Path to defeat.
Now in 2013, the president tried to clarify those many remarks, saying he was talking about Al-Qaeda's core leadership. But now we may be seeing a resurgence of Al-Qaeda in Iraq, a country that was supposed to be stable enough for the U.S. to leave on December 18, 2011, when the last U.S. combat troops pulled out. The New York Times is reporting that radical Sunni militants with links to Al-Qaeda are threatening to overtake Fallujah and Ramadi, two key Iraqi cities where many American troops lost their lives during the Iraq War. Just today, at least 80 people were killed in clashes in Anbar province, though a senior Interior Ministry official says most of the 80 were Al-Qaeda members. The UN reports that in 2013, nearly 8,000 civilians and more than 1,000 members of Iraqi security forces were killed in Iraq, the highest death toll there in 5 years. Let's talk about this with David Gartenstein-Ross, the director at the Center for the Study of Terrorist Radicalization. You wrote an article for Politico a few days ago called Al-Qaeda's Big Year, and we're talking about, are we talking about the core leadership of Al-Qaeda? Are we talking about these affiliates, the even more loosely affiliated groups? What do you mean by Al-Qaeda's big year?
When I say they had a big year, I'm talking about affiliates that are recognized affiliates. That is, they took an oath of loyalty to Al-Qaeda, one that was accepted by the central leadership. Frankly, the status of the central leadership is something about which there's a lot of debate, but not a lot of visibility. We know that there's been a great deal of attrition within the core, but the bigger question is, what does it mean? That is, can you kill your way to victory, as the Obama administration seems to think, or is it instead a much more resilient organization than we often estimate?
And these affiliates, you suggest, had a great 2013. Obviously, we're not happy about that.
Right.
But explain, how did they have a good 2013?
I think any way you measure it, it's a movement that's both growing and also one that's inflicting a whole lot of carnage in areas of the world where it's active. Ranging from Iraq, where, as you said, almost 8,000 people were killed, the highest death toll since the height of the Civil War back in 06 to 07, to Syria, where you have a growing civil war. Al-Qaeda-affiliated organizations are playing a bigger role and even controlling cities in the north. And then going down to Somalia, where last year the Al-Qaeda affiliate there, Shabab, was announced as being defeated when it was pushed out of Kismayo. But this year it was able to carry out a major devastating strike at the Westgate Mall in Nairobi, after also carrying out a number of spectacular attacks inside Somalia itself.
So many Americans died fighting for Fallujah and Ramadi. How is it that Al-Qaeda in Iraq has been able to establish beachheads there and overtake those towns, or almost overtake those towns?
Well, they've been steadily growing over the past few years since the U.S. withdrew from Iraq. But in this case, there was a series of Sunni protest camps that got cleared out by the Iraqi military. Bear in mind that first reports are often unreliable, but what I'm gathering from my sources and also from the regional media is that the local affiliate, the Islamic State of Iraq and Asham, had planned an offensive in advance. And when the Iraqi military went in to push people out of these protest camps, which were not Al-Qaeda camps, ISIS, that local affiliate, used the opportunity to undertake a major offensive into both Fallujah and also Ramadi simultaneously.
And you talked about branches in Syria. There's also Yemen, Mali, Kenya. How coordinated are all these groups?
This is a point of a great deal of debate amongst analysts. Some people adhere to the idea that it's basically just a brand, that there isn't a great deal of coordination between the central leadership and the affiliates. Others think
they swear the oath and then kind of go off and do their dastardly deeds.
Precisely. And the competing view is that there is decentralization of action, but centralization of strategy. I tend to fall into that camp, but I should say that this is an area where not enough information has been released to allow for really good open source analysis. And I think that one thing analysts should be pushing for is a release of more documents that were captured in the Abbottabad raid, because that would give us a much better idea about how these organizations actually function together.
And we were told, I guess maybe like 2011, 2012, the big threat was Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, which was mainly in Yemen. There have been a number of drone strikes there. How strong are they?
There have been a number of drone strikes, but one thing they've been able to do is carry out basically an assassination campaign against high-level Yemeni officers. This has created a great deal of attrition within the Yemeni military. Again, you have questions just like you do in Pakistan. We know that there's attrition, but the question is, what does the attrition mean? One thing I should point to is that studies that have actually looked at this question show that for organizations that are structured in this particular way, where they're clandestine and also they're built up in a cellular manner so that destroying one node doesn't necessarily bleed over into others.
The Hydra effect, yeah.
Right. It's very difficult to win by a purely attrition-based strategy, which is what we have in Pakistan and Yemen right now.
And terrifying, and of course AQAP, the ones in Yemen, they're the ones who keep plotting to send individuals here to this country to do damage and to wreak havoc. Thank you so much, David. We appreciate it.